Hello there. Welcome to another episode of Art and Ramble, a segment on my show that gives me an excuse to talk about the artwork that I created this year and ramble on about some video games, comics, movies, what have you. Mostly because the artwork that I create tend to all interlink with those types of media. So again, it just gives me an excuse to ramble on about that crap. All these illustrations weren't seen in Loon Junk Media episodes. Like, you won't be seeing that illustration piece I did for Minish Cap. You will just be pretty much seeing illustration pieces that I created separate from Loon Junk Media. Let's begin the ramble. The Art Ramble, as I call it. Art and Ramble. Maybe I should just call it Art Ramble. No, Art and Ramble. That's a better name. So we're going to kick off this video with an illustration piece of Squirrel Girl serving some waffles. She's holding a whisk. She's holding a huge stack of waffles. There's a disgusting squirrel on top of the waffles. And she's in her underwear. She's also wearing her, I think that's the top she wore in Marvel Rivals, but then she like puts a jacket over it. It's her without her jacket. Basically, she just woke up this morning. She fancied herself some waffles and she created some waffles. So she's still kind of wearing her morning outfit, you know, or her bed out. I don't know. She's in her underwear. What more do you guys need? What more explanation do you need? She's in her underwear. This illustration piece originally started off as an excuse for me to just draw waffles. So I was doing this exercise in my my sketchbook where I was just, you know, drawing rectangles at different angles, basically trying to practice the fundamentals, and I found myself bored of it. Like, you know, it's boring, right? You're constantly sketching like spheres, cubes, and pyramids. That's boring. You know, I wanted to shake it up. I wanted to experiment with the fundamentals. So I was like, okay, why don't I draw waffles? Because waffles are rectangles and they can be flat circles. Circles are flat. That sounded stupid. 3D, you know what I mean? The biscuit shape looking waffle. Anyway, so yeah, I wanted to do that. So I kind of did that in my sketchbook, you know, experimented with like different shapes and different types of waffles. I even drew a picture of Donkey from Shrek. This is the first time I've ever drawn Donkey from Shrek. It came out pretty good, actually. Yeah, quite impressed. So that stemmed to me going, all right, well, let's take it up a notch. Let's actually make an illustration piece with the waffles as the star. Or, well, at least being the main subject, or being a part of the theme. I wouldn't say the waffles are the star, clearly. So when I was coming up with who to draw, I actually did not have Squirrel Girl in mind. I actually was going to do Power Girl. I knew I wanted her without her costume and kind of her, you know, underwear and whatnot. You know, looking like she just got out of bed, basically. The thing is, though, you take Power Girl out of her costume, what is she? Just a blonde chick, right? It doesn't really scream Power Girl, you know? I think one of the difficulties of drawing characters like superheroes, or, you know, even just characters without their iconic costumes, you have to kind of explain to the audience who the character is. And the thing is, though, I didn't want to explain to people, oh yeah, this is Power Girl with her costume. It sounded stupid. I knew it just wouldn't click with people when they saw it. Instead of Power Girl, I thought, okay, who else could I do? So I did think of Rogue, because, you know, she has the iconic white hair and brown hair, right? You know, that can easily be explained. But for some reason, I just didn't feel like Rogue making waffles fit. Like, I don't know, Rogue doesn't seem like the type to make waffles. She doesn't really seem the type to cook at all. I might be wrong. I'm not saying I'm like a Rogue expert or anything, but so yeah, I was like, no, let's not do Rogue. I kept thinking, like, what character fits waffles? Like, what Marvel superhero would you see making waffles? And Squirrel Girl popped up in my head. Now, I don't know anything about Squirrel Girl at all. The only thing I know about Squirrel Girl is that she was in the video game Marvel Rivals. I've played Marvel Rivals before. She has kind of this like cutesy personality to her. And I thought, yeah, that actually kind of fits waffles, right? That, you know, waffles are sweet, they're delicious. just like Squirrel Girl, sweet and delicious. Basically, that's how it happened. I was like, yeah, let's draw Squirrel Girl. And plus I thought, oh yeah, if you take away her costume, keep the tail and ears, people are gonna know it's Squirrel Girl. It's perfect. Basically, this illustration piece was meant for her. So yeah, that's how it came to be. And for the background, I wanted to show off the waffles because, you know, I've been illustrating waffles in my sketchbook. I figured I might as well show all that practice of drawing waffles. I might as well present it as at least the background. You know, you got just your basic waffles, you got syrup pouring on waffles, and then you got some butter because you got to put some butter on waffles. That shit's delicious. But yeah, no, this was freaking fun. I'm a fan of food illustration, believe it or not. And not just women. I also like drawings of foods. And I like seeing, you know, different ways artists try to interpretate certain food textures. She's been kind of like an interesting subject to draw because, again, I have no idea who she is. I don't even really know her real name. Darlene? Daryl? It starts with the D. I don't know her fucking name. But yeah, no, she's been a fun character to draw. She's bubbly. She's cute. She's thick. Oh, and she's a redhead. So, like, all the great things I look for in a woman, you know? Let's get a little real about Squirrel Girl for a minute, okay? If it weren't for Marvel Rivals, no one would know who the fuck Squirrel Girl is. She is such the most irrelevant Marvel superhero ever. No, not ever. I'm sure somebody can list some obscure Marvel superhero. But yeah, if it weren't for Marvel Rivals, no one would know her name. No one would be cosplaying as her. No one would be doing fan art of her. Okay, Marvel tried to make her a thing. Let's be honest. Marvel tried to make her a thing, but they didn't know how to do it. They had comics. We even had some action figures that were actually pretty good. Wasn't she even supposed to have her own live action TV series at one point that got canned? She's been in some cartoons, and honestly, no one has given a shit about Squirrel Girl ever. Even when she was originally created back in the 90s, no one gave a shit about her. In fact, I didn't know this, but apparently Steve Ditko was one of her co-creators. Steve Ditko, the co-creator of Spider-Man. But yeah, so Steve Ditko was one of her co-creators, and she was, well, she just looked weird. I don't know what was going on back then, but even back then, no one gave a shit about Squirrel Girl until now. Now everyone knows Squirrel Girl. Now everyone's all jumping the Squirrel Girl hype train because of Marvel Rivals, and because Marvel Rivals did what Marvel couldn't. They made Squirrel Girl thick and hot. It gave her big boobs and a bubbly ass, thick thighs, and put her in a tight outfit. Yeah, people are gonna know who Squirrel Girl is now, Marvel. Pretty obvious, but apparently Marvel didn't know how to crack this code, but China did for some odd reason. And then, of course, the swimsuit DLC came out, and everyone's all like, oh my god, she's even hotter. And yeah, she's cute. She's bubbly. That's what people like about her. She actually has a pretty appealing personality, you know? I played Marvel Rivals a little bit. I don't like online multiplayer games. I don't like online PvP games. This is not my thing, but I do like the artwork. I think the artwork is actually pretty fucking fantastic in that game. But yeah, this was Squirrel Girl. She's holding a whisk to indicate that she was making waffles. That's actually the reason why I put the whisk in there, because I was like, I need to show you guys that she was actually making the waffles, you know, not just like running around like an idiot with a plate of waffles. She was doing actual work. But yeah, so that's Squirrel Girl. My favorite part about this piece, weirdly enough, is her hair. It was fun to draw. It was fun to ink. I liked her hair. All right, moving on. So I'm going to keep on the theme of Squirrel Girl just because it kind of helps keep these things together, because my next Squirrel Girl piece is continuing my desire to draw all things sweet. So yeah, this illustration piece, I wanted to really focus on drawing the cake. No, not that cake, this cake, the pineapple upside down cake. Pineapple upside down cake is cake that is made upside down. You see, you start the first layer of with just like butter and brown sugar. I like to sprinkle or put some pineapple juice into it. You know, you mix it up, then you put the pineapples, then you put the cherries, and then you put the cake batter over it. You bake it, and then you flip it over. I don't know why that's a thing. I don't know who came up with upside down cakes. It was a thing in the 1920s, 30s, 40s, 50s. I don't know. Take your pick. The time Betty Crocker was a thing. I don't know. You know, back then. I'm continuing the idea of using Squirrel Girl as my main centerpiece. Again, Squirrel Girl was not going to be a part of this. I don't remember who was going to be a part of this, but I remember it not being Squirrel Girl. But the thing was, because I already did a waffle piece with her, and because I want to continue this theme of drawing sweet items, I thought, okay, well, she kind of fits the whole cakey theme that I'm going with, so it works out. I mean, Squirrel Girl's got an amazing cake on her. I mean, she makes an amazing cake. You know what I mean. So yeah, I just basically was like, yeah, just throw in Squirrel Girl. Now, I don't remember if Spider-Man was supposed to be in the original piece as well. I think originally I was just gonna have her serving the cake to you, the audience. Like, it was supposed to be just a normal hand. It wasn't supposed to be Spider-Man, I think. For some odd reason, I just wanted to draw Spider-Man. Actually, not for some odd reason. The reason why, because I had this idea of wanting to have Spider-Man basically win. Does that make sense? I wanted to have Spider-Man look like he's winning, because Marvel, for some odd reason, never wants Spider-Man to win. Now, I'm not talking about beating Green Goblin. I'm talking about winning in life. I'm talking about winning in love. I'm talking about winning and getting cake, you know? Basically, I wanted to have Spider-Man have a win in this illustration piece because I love Spider-Man. He's like my favorite superhero, and I hate what Marvel does to Spider-Man. They either make him a teenager forever or some sort of cucked asshole. You know, before drawing this Squirrel Girl, I had already drawn Spidey going on a date with somebody, and in the background, it was supposed to have MJ and Paul. I don't know who this kid is. I think he was Venom's kid or Eddie Brock's kid. I don't remember what the comic was that came out during this time, but I think for some odd reason, Brock's kid was living with MJ and Paul for some reason. Anyway, so I had this idea of them following Parker around as he goes on his dates with these different women. I never went forward with that, but I did go forward with this idea, and I took that thought and tried to incorporate it with this illustration. So yeah, we have in the background Mary Jane and Paul following Parker around, and they're jealous. I don't know why they're jealous, but they're jealous. So if you're wondering why is Paul looking at us or why is Paul looking at Spider-Man, that's because I was inspired by the movie The Other Guys with Will Ferrell and what's his name, Mark Wahlberg, where they play these sort of like loser cops. It's an okay movie. Michael Keaton is fucking fantastic in that movie. Hilarious. The movie I don't think is as good, mostly because I just don't like Will Ferrell. Will Ferrell, ugh. So in that movie, The Other Guys, Will Ferrell's ex-wife is like this like super hot chick, and she's dating she's married to some guy, and she still wants to fuck Will Ferrell. And there's a scene where Mark Wahlberg and Will Ferrell are running away from or I think just Will Ferrell's running away from the house. And then the husband's chasing Will Ferrell, and he's like, "You get back here and you fuck my wife." And so that's basically what inspired me to draw Paul like this. He's like, you better fuck MJ. How dare you cheat on her? How dare you cheat on my wife, MJ? How dare you? Even though you guys have been broken up since, I don't know, what was One Bad Day or One More Day or whatever the fucking day it was that Marvel had Spider-Man sell his marriage to the devil or some weird bullshit like that. Anyway, so basically he wants to, Paul is the type of guy who wants to be cuffed. For those who don't know who Paul is, I have no idea who Paul is as well. He was just some guy Mary Jane was dating. He was like this man bun looking motherfucker. He basically was just created to cuck Parker. There's a comic scene that pisses me off. I've never really read this run, mostly because I don't want to see my boy Parker get cucked. But there's a comic scene where Parker's hanging out with Paul and MJ, and he's all like, "Wow, Paul, you make some good chicken," whatever that dish was that he said. And it was just fucking stupid. It was like, Marvel's really committed to this whole let's cuck Parker thing, to the point where he's even hanging out with the guy who's, you know, cucking his wife. Like, really? Paul's like this pathetic, I don't know if he's a self-insert. I don't know what he is. Sometimes he's ripped. Sometimes he's not. Again, I don't know if he's a self-insert. I don't know if he's some weird dude's power fantasy. I don't know what Paul is, but he fucking sucks, and he should never, ever have been created in the first place. So yeah, I wanted to Parker to be happy, and I thought, why not have a date with Squirrel Girl? Like, she made him some cake after, well, you know, she basically gave him 2 types of cake in this drawing. And Spider-Man seems happy. He seems confused. He's mostly confused because he sees the Hulk. I have no idea why I drew the Hulk in this one. So I think I drew Hulk just because I wanted an excuse to find some way to draw the full cake, because I was already, you know, doing some cake studying, and I wanted to draw the full cake and I couldn't find a clever way to incorporate it. That's what I do if I can't find a way to incorporate something I want into an illustration piece. I just put it in a speech bubble, because I was like, oh, that's this comic booky kind of thing. Yeah. But yeah, we have the Hulk in here. So yeah, this illustration is of Princess Peach, you know, having a breakdown. By breakdown, I mean her motorcycle is no longer working. I kind of wish I indicated a little bit more that her motorcycle wasn't working, but the thing was, this illustration piece was the first time I have ever drawn a motorcycle. So I was a little hyper focused on trying to get this motorcycle to look good that I kind of forgot to add a little bit of a reason as to why it's broken down. Like, I could have added a little bit of smoke to it. I could have done something a little bit more, but again, I was so hyper focused on trying to make the motorcycle look accurate and correct that I sort of spaced on a little minor detail. So this is Princess Peach, you know, looking for a ride, and her boy Mario just so happened to be driving by, and he was like, oh yeah. And yeah, so I am giving Princess Peach a bit of more of a sexy look to her. You know, she's wearing kind of Daisy Dukes, showing a little bit more skin rather than in comparison to the outfit that I based it off of, which is her motorcycle outfit from the game Mario Kart World. I can't remember off the top of my head if I made this before or after the release of Mario Kart World. I know it was inspired by Mario Kart World. I just don't remember the exact date. But yeah, so the whole point is, you know, her bike broke down, she's hitchhiking, Mario sees her, he's like, oh, I'm totally gonna pick her up, and she's pretty much in the desert, and no one wants to be stranded in the desert or even the woods, but the desert sounds more, actually no, the woods sound more horrifying because you never know what's in the woods. The desert's at least open. The desert sounds hot and annoying, and that's probably why I chose the desert. But yeah, this is the first time I've ever actually drawn a motorcycle, which was insane. What basically helped get me through this illustration was to break down the bike parts into shapes. So I would take the bike, break down it into a big shape, and then within that big shape, add little other shapes to sort of make up these, you know, these tires and gears and motors and all that jazz. God damn, this I know this took forever. I know this took a while for me, but it came out actually pretty good. For a first time drawing of a bike, it came out pretty good. I am specifically choosing a more side angle because I was, you know, I didn't want to go all perspective and add 3 dimensions to this. So I stayed within my comfort zone, but also pushed out of my comfort zone. So surprisingly though, the background was the easiest part. Usually I struggle with backgrounds, but no, this background came out pretty easy. It was a pretty simple background. I mean, it's a desert theme, so illustrating rocks and cactuses wasn't that much of a challenge, but yeah. That was probably the easiest part about this illustration piece. I mean, Peach was pretty easy too, but she's got some minor annoyances, like the fact that her foot's kind of off the paper. That's a little annoying, and I kind of made her arm look a little weird. So like I said before, this illustration piece was inspired by Mario Kart World for the Switch 2. I was gonna say Super Nintendo. This came out for the Super Nintendo. No, it was for Switch 2. They should have just called it the Super Switch. Well, actually, that might have confused people too, because the Wii U was very confusing for people. I will never understand the confusion with the Wii U. Yeah, okay, I get it. It's got Wii in it, but it's a different console. How could you not see that? That's just my opinion. I mean, the Wii U was a shit console. No offense to people who like the Wii U. My Wii U bricked, so I have a very, very bad opinion on the Wii U, but even I knew it was a new console, so calling it the Super Switch I don't think would have been that big of a deal. They should have called it something other than the Switch 2. I'm just saying, Switch 2 is safe, let's be honest. It's not bad, it's just safe. I would have gone with like Ultra Switch, Mega Switch, Switch 64. I don't know, something cool. But yeah, so this was inspired by Mario Kart World, which that game looks fucking sick. Not for $80 though. Looks good. Looks awesome. I like the open world. I like the connected tracks. I like the character graphics. I don't know. It looks cartoony. It looks whimsical. It looks awesome. Not for $80 though. I have not picked up a Switch 2 yet. I don't even know if I'm going to pick up a Switch 2 anytime soon. I love Nintendo. Don't get me wrong, but I don't know. This might be a hot take, but I feel like Nintendo has lost some of its magic since the Switch release. Yeah, I know a lot of people go, whoa, hold on now. The Switch was an awesome console. It was an awesome console. Don't get me wrong. Great console. It's just something about the Switch I felt like Nintendo lost some magic during the Switch era. And even with the Switch 2, I'm not really seeing the magic. It might just be nostalgia on my part. As I'm getting older, maybe Nintendo games are just not as appealing to me as they used to be. Who knows? As you get older, you kind of take off those rose-tinted glasses. But yeah, I haven't really been super impressed by the Switch 2 because, well, first of all, the price is $80 for Mario Kart. That just seems ridiculous, guys. That just seems a little bit too steep for my taste. This is, of course, coming from some guy who spent $100 on a PlayStation 1 Dragon Quest 7 game, so maybe I shouldn't be talking about money. To be fair, though, those games are, rare to find, hard to find. These are new games. They're easy to find. They're accessible. I don't know. Nintendo has just been making some weird ass decisions, like the key cards. Like what is the key cards about? But yeah, just the key cards are just so weird. I still don't get what is the point of them. I understand what they are. They're like buying one of those gift cards and then inputting like the code of the gift card into like the eShop, and then it's like, boom, you got the game. But instead of buying a gift card, you're buying an actual cartridge that you plug in, and then it's like, boom, you got the game. But the game is not on the cartridge. It's just unlocking the digital version. So it's like, what is even the point of what's the point of the cartridge? Why not just buy the goddamn game on the eShop? Why even do this? It doesn't make sense to me. These key cards don't make sense to me. Although I'm sure you guys are sick and tired of hearing yet another YouTuber talk about the key cards. That's the thing about YouTube. It's the same content, just different people, right? I guess I'm just waiting for Zelda, of course. Maybe the next Zelda game will help me determine if I'm gonna get a Switch 2 or not. Moving on from Princess Peach. Our next drawing is of Superman. He's holding an apple pie. Yeah, this illustration piece came out around the time that the new Superman movie was releasing. James Gunn's Superman. I have yet to actually see that movie. I don't think I'm going to see that movie. It's just that it didn't look interesting to me. That, and I don't get the hype for James Gunn. Okay, yeah, I liked Guardians of the Galaxy when it released. In fact, as a teenager, I remember thinking, oh my God, this is like the best movie ever. But I've seen better movies since, and I'm not a teenager anymore. So, it's Guardians of the Galaxy 1 is still a good movie. I even still like Guardians of the Galaxy 2 because Kurt Russell's in that one. I love Kurt Russell. Yeah, James Gunn in general, though, I don't get the hype. When it was announced that they were going to make a new Superman movie and James Gunn was going to be directing it, I remember going, really? James Gunn out of everyone? Really? Ugh. I felt ugh was when I heard it. Was like, oh God, James Gunn. I'm not saying he's like bad at what he does. I just think he's average. I see that a lot of comic book artists love this guy, and I think it's because he's someone in Hollywood who reads comics, which is great. It's great that he has a hobby. I would hope that most people in Hollywood at least have a hobby outside of Hollywood. That's great. We all have hobbies, though, We all have hobbies. So I don't know why he's so special. And then when I saw the trailer for Superman, and there's a scene where he's like yelling at Lois, and he's not just yelling at her, he's doing that whiny bitchy yell. He's like, I'm special, I'm saving people, Lois. I'm a superhero. And it's like, aw, Superman mad. I don't know, just like, I remember seeing that scene going, ugh. I'm not saying Superman can't yell or get like bitchy or whiny, because all superheroes yell and get bitchy and whiny. But yeah, I don't know. I just didn't like seeing that. I'm sure there's more context to the story because, again, I never saw the movie. I don't think I'm going to see the movie. But see, the thing is, though, a trailer is supposed to sell you on the movie. So if the trailer just doesn't pique your interest, why bother seeing it? You know, like, why waste time? So yeah, the trailer didn't appeal to me. And then you have like fucking Guy Gardner was in the movie. You have Hawk Girl. You have, what was that guy? Metamorpho? What's his name? Metamorphosis? I can't remember his name. That guy. I thought it was Brainiac at first, but then upon actually looking at the trailer closely, I was like, no, that's Metamorpho. The fuck is Metamorpho doing in this movie? Who else did you have? What's that guy's name? Fair Play? Mr. Terrific. That's his name. Sorry. He wears a Fair Play jacket and he's Mr. Terrific. Yeah, that guy. The movie just looks so goddamn bloated, and based off what I've heard, it is kind of a bloated movie. Yeah, so the movie just didn't interest me. However, I was kind of buying the Superman hype. Not for the movie, just for Superman as a character. You know what I'm saying? Because like around the time that the movie was starting to release, people were just talking about Superman. Superman was on social media. People were making videos about Superman. It was like Superman fever, and I kind of caught a little bit of Superman fever. What happened was I ended up watching my favorite Superman movies. Not just the 1970s movie. I'm talking about like the animated movies too. Superman versus the Elite, Superman Doomsday, The Death of Superman, Batman and Superman. Oh, those are some fantastic movies. I even watched one of my all-time favorite, it's a Superman short. It's a DC studio short. It's Superman Shazam versus Black Adam. Fan-fucking-tastic short. So yeah, I was catching some Superman fever during the time, and I wanted to draw my Superman fever. And there's this stupid, this really dumb mantra that James Gunn put out that was that hope is the new punk rock. Is the dumbest shit I've ever heard. Hope is the new punk rock. Really? That is so corny, but it works though. People fucking love that shit. To me, that sounds cringy as fuck, but people were like, yes, hope is the new punk rock. But it did make me think a little bit about hope. You know, what is hope? Hope is kind of cheesy. Like, let's be honest with ourselves. When we try to inspire hope, it's cheesy as fuck. So I thought, why not give Superman a bit of cheese in this illustration? That's why I have him say, sometimes hope starts with a warm smile and a big slice of apple pie. Because that sounds cheesy. Superman's kind of a cheese ball. It kind of fits. It kind of works. I still don't think hope is the new punk rock because that sounds stupid, but to be cheesy about it, all right, kind of fits Superman. I'll give him that. So I wanted to like really kind of cheese Superman now. You know, I wanted him to be holding a big slice of apple pie. I wanted this American flag below him, this kind of truth, justice, and the American way look to him, you know? Because apple pie is American, right? For some odd reason. Don't know why, but it's American. And so I just kind of wanted this patriotic kind of look to it, you know? It's like classic Americana. You know, you've seen like classic illustrations that came out in like the 40s, 50s, 60s. They all kind of had this sort of, you know, cheesy kind of patriotic kind of look to them. It was around 4th of July, and I just wanted to play around with patriotism, you know? I gotta say though, that American flag was tedious to draw. There's 50 stars on her flag and 13 stripes? I'm not that fucking good at remembering shit, so don't you be there judging me. Oh, what, you don't even know the number of stripes on the American flag? Yeah, I don't remember everything. God, jeez, I'm not in grade school anymore. I'm not expected to remember every fucking thing. But anyway, there was so much detail on the flag I didn't even realize, and so I had to like count out all the stripes, and it was so tedious. But you know what? Hey, that's art. Sometimes it's tedious. For the stars, I got a little bit lucky by just hiding the pie in front of the star so I don't have to count out all 50 states, you know? I feel like this one taught me a little bit more about inking. I've been doing a lot of physical inking throughout this year, and this right here, I reached a point where it starts to feel more comfortable, and I'm starting to get more into it. So I'm starting to make more like riskier moves, like darkening certain parts of his body. This one was interesting because, you know, when I was thinking of Superman's costume, you know, I was thinking of like textures, and then even the pie, which, speaking of tedious, the pie was tedious because I had to think about textures, and dummy me decided to draw an apple pie with the crusts overlaying each other, which was just a lot of thoughts, and I didn't like thinking too much about it. It was tedious, but it made me think of textures. And that is something that I love about ink, is textures. I think ink does a fantastic job showing like the roughness of something, the crumbles of the pie, the smoothness of Superman's costume. And then you look at his like symbol and his belt. The reason why I did that was because I had drawn this sort of hatch texture in his symbol. And like, cause I wanted sort of like, you know how like in, I think it's Zack Snyder's Superman where he has kind of that like textury symbol. That's the one thing I do like from Man of Steel was I did like his costume. That's probably the only compliment I'll say about Man of Steel. But I wanted to give some texture to his costume. But the rule about art is if you do something in one area, you got to continue in another area. So I decided that every yellow part of his costume needed sort of a hatchy texture to it. So that's why his belt kind of has a bit of a texture to it. So Superman was kind of this quirky Boy Scout. In contrast to Superman, we have drunk Supergirl who drinks for truth, justice, and the American way, the way God intended. Yeah, so drunk Supergirl was a thing that happened in the movie, apparently, the new Superman movie, and people loved it. My parents did see the movie, by the way. They did see the Superman movie, and my mom specifically hated that scene. To be fair, though, my mom is a woman who grew up in the 70s and 80s, but she kind of acts like she's from the 1940s sometimes, to an extent. I mean, she's from Seattle, so she's still pretty liberal, but there's certain things she just fucking hates. Like she called what did she call Supergirl? She called Supergirl during that scene, why is Supergirl acting like a floozy? She called her a floozy, which is a nice way of saying fucking slut. Why is Supergirl a fucking slut is what she was saying. And I was like, well, I don't know, Mom, that's just James Gunn's jokes. It's a sense of humor. She's like, well, I didn't like it. So we have a trashy American girl with American bra, which I will say is the coolest outfit a woman can wear, in my opinion. Yeah, I was just being kind of funny. During the time the movie had released, drunk Supergirl became super popular. A lot of artists were drawing Kara from that movie. They were drawing her in her trench coats, but the thing was, a lot of them were just drawing her being cutesy drunk, a little tipsy, little hair maybe a little messed up, kind of like cutesy drunk. And then here comes Frank Cho, right? Frank Cho, one of my all-time goddamn favorite artists. He draws drunk Supergirl with vomit on her costume. She's slurring her speech. She's just belligerent, And it was hilarious to me because, like, when I heard about drunk Supergirl, that's immediately what I thought of, is like a woman who's just like vomiting everywhere and who's like, hey guys, it's me, Supergirl. There's a bit of a Frank Cho inspiration behind this illustration piece. I wanted my own take on drunk Supergirl too, and I didn't want to copy Frank Cho because part of me was like, yeah, I want to draw her vomiting too. That sounds hilarious. But it's like, no, I don't want to like copy him, man. You gotta come up with your own ideas. You can't just like be like, oh, I'm so inspired by this person, I'm just gonna rip their idea off. So I thought, okay, what's drunk Supergirl, right? What is drunk Supergirl? And so I've been kind of pondering different ideas. And then one day I was just like, you know what? I kind of want to draw like a hot chick in an American bikini outfit. And then it just clicked in my head. Make it drunk Supergirl. Just do it. Just do it. And I'm like, yes, that is the drunk Supergirl I want. That is the drunk Supergirl I need. American bikini, trashy, drunk Supergirl. I did make her slobber because slobbering sounded funny to me. It sounds funny to me. It's not sexual, guys. It's funny. So I made her slobbering. Her pants need to be hiked up a little bit more. She's gone through an entire six-pack. She's whipping for some reason. And of course, then we have Superman being like, you better drink responsibly. Drink responsibly, guys. Come on. Because, Superman's the wet blanket of the superheroes, right? He's the Boy Scout. He's got to be all like, he's the dad. He's got to look at you and be like, hey, drink responsibly. Now, okay, this one was challenging in a weird way because it kind of goes back to my Power Girl in her underwear complaint I had with the waffle illustration. how do you make Supergirl look like Supergirl when she's not in her outfit? The only thing I could do was give her a Superman hat and have a Superman symbol behind her, and then of course having Superman in the corner. Because you kind of know, all right, she might be Supergirl. She's clearly a blonde, and it's kind of relevant to the recent super drunk Supergirl illustration, so it kind of works. It kind of works. Now, I got a little bit ballsy with the black ink on this one. This one, I was just trying to think of contrast, you know? Originally, I wasn't even going to have the back be completely black. I was actually just going to have it be kind of just open. And but the problem was you gotta have some contrast in your art. You gotta have the main figure pop, for lack of better terms. So I did it. I took a leap. I made the background completely black. I took out my black brush and I just made the background black. And you know what? It came out okay. So yeah, drunk Supergirl, slobbering drunk Supergirl. Thank you, Frank Cho, for being an inspiration to us men, I guess. Okay, before I get to my next illustration piece, I do gotta issue a, I guess, warning or content I don't know what you want to call it, trigger warning, whatever you want to call it. Mostly for YouTube. This content's not really for you guys, it's for YouTube. YouTube, if you're watching, your moderators, whatever, please note this illustration piece does not contain nudity. It doesn't. What you are looking at, which I'll show you in a moment, is a woman with breastplates that just so happens to have nipples on them. The breastplates are just, I guess you could say, metallic or some sort of rough texture. They're just that. It's no different from Batman and Robin, where they had the fucking nipple armor on their fucking outfit. It's no different. It is also no different than seeing a marble statue with nipples. No different. It's not real nipples. It's not real nudity. So chill the fuck out. Don't go around deleting anyone's channels just because you guys are, you know, using AI or whatever the fuck is going on. Don't delete my channel just because of this, is what I'm saying. I'm not worried about money or anything because I'm not even getting money from this channel, but I'm more worried about actually having my channel deleted. That is what I'm worried about. But so YouTube, chill the fuck out. There's no nudity. Here's my next illustration of a, a female warrior from the Dragon Quest series. Yes, those are nipple armors. Not real. Nipples. Not real. Not real. I feel like I'm treading a little bit of shark-infested waters with this one. Just a little, but that's fine.
Oh, watch out. Ah! Thanks, boys. Get the nurse.
Get the nurse! Get the nurse!
Make sure her nipples are covered up, will you?
This illustration piece is legit about corn chowder. I was making corn chowder, which led to me wanting to illustrate a scene of characters eating corn chowder. Corn chowder in question, though, was not good, which I guess this guy's reaction kind of reflects on how I felt about that corn chowder. Didn't like it as much. But yeah, so I landed on Dragon Quest. The reason why I wanted to create a scene with Dragon Quest characters was because I actually have started re-getting into Dragon Quest, kind of. It's a series I haven't thought about in like years. God, even after Akira Toriyama passed away, it's the series that always spaced my mind, you know? It's not a bad series. I grew up playing Dragon Warriors for the NES, which I didn't even know if that was Dragon Quest. Apparently, originally, for some reason, it was called Dragon Warriors here in America, and then it got changed to Dragon Quest. Don't know why, but okay. Just been having an itch, you know? I've been wanting to experience Akira Toriyama's artwork again, but through, like, you know, video games and whatnot. You know, I'm a huge Dragon Ball fan, and I don't know why it took me forever to get into Dragon Quest. I mean, I played Dragon Quest when I was a teenager. I played Dragon Quest 9 for the DS. I remember being really hyped for that when I was a kid because, you know, it was Akira Toriyama's artwork. You can create your own character in Akira Toriyama's art style. That sounded fucking awesome to me. And I remember really liking that game, but I never really continued playing Dragon Quest games afterwards. But yeah, but then out of nowhere, recently, I just got into Dragon Quest Builder 2, and I fucking love that game. I didn't even know I would like that game because I don't really actually care for Minecraft games. I never cared for Minecraft, but that game is actually kind of fun. It's very addicting. It's like you can create your own farms, you can create your own village, you can help other villages. It's kind of interesting. And so that led me to wanting to get into the series. It led me to picking up Dragon Quest VIII for the PlayStation 2, and that game was fucking awesome too. So while I was, playing a lot of Dragon Quest, I just wanted to come up with my own Dragon Quest fan art. I wanted an art piece that stays true to sort of like Akira Toriyama's vision in terms of monster designs and even the characters. I'm trying to keep them with their spiky hair and kind of, I guess, unconventional look to them. If you compare like Dragon Quest to say like Elder Scrolls or some sort of medieval RPG, they have a very European kind of look to them. But then you look at like Dragon Quest and it's like, you have a fucking priest with a mustache and, people are still wearing glasses. They look like cosplayers in sort of like medieval outfits. And then of course you have like the sort of more goofier, like the female armor with the wings on her helmet. That's just kind of kooky, corny. It's kind of funny. So yeah, this illustration piece, besides the corn chowder not being the best, was really an excuse for me to draw more food. I wanted to draw a big pot of soup. And as we can see, the adventurer is scooping out the soup, but it turns out it's one of those, I can't remember what they're called. They're not slimes. They're like pile of goo monster. But yeah, he's infatuated with her and she's disgusted because there's monsters in the soup. And this unfortunate gentleman figured that out too late. And he ate some monsters and it's disgusting. I would say I really like the bottom here, the little corn chowder label with the corn next to it and the bowl of chowder. I think that was kind of a nice addition to sort of keep everything clean and contained. And I like that. So I like that look. Also, this is another example of if you do something in one area, you got to continue it. So the texture of the cauldron is very sort of, it's very grainy looking. I didn't want to just leave the cauldron being the only piece that's grainy. So as I was thinking about it, I decided to make her armor grainy because, it's not full on metal. I kind of imagine it to be kind of like a very hard, not plastic, just a hard material that has little sort of reptilian grain to it. I don't know what I'm saying. Very grainy material is what I was going for. I even added texture to the bowls because I wanted to really show that, they're not using like plastic materials or like ceramic bowls. They're using sort of things you would find in like nature. Like in a weird way, I was like thinking they crafted a bowl or something, out of like hardwood or something. And then, we have the characters in the back. That's her party. This guy's kind of got a Native American look to him. And the other guy, he was kind of inspired by Onizuka from GTO. I had this idea of like, what if Onizuka was a priest? This guy's supposed to be a priest, but it's kind of hard to tell because I don't have the cross on him or anything. But yeah, I thought the idea of Onizuka as a priest sounded kind of funny. If you've seen the show, that guy is not a holy man. Yeah, I wanted a foresty background. That's why we have pine trees in the back and the moon is lit and the stars are shining. Adding the little stars with white ink to a black inked background made me feel like Bob Ross. I was just like, here's the little twinkly stars. Yes. Made me feel like Bob Ross. Okay. Moving on. I don't know what else to say. Okay, and we're moving on to our last illustration piece. This is in A Link to the Past fan art. Now this was an interesting one, for sure. This illustration is a perfect example of just trusting the art process. There was a certain point when I was illustrating this that started to get me worried, which was, of course, the black background. After I had finished inking Link and Zelda, and I had finished inking the puddle with the snake, I moved on to the black background, and I started to kind of lose the vision because it started to not look correct to me. But in my head, I had a vision, I had an idea, and I just kept going with it. And so after finishing, I thought it just still didn't look right to me. until I decided to add streaks of white ink to create like more of a shine. You see the sort of the spiky rays around the characters, you know, that was made possible with the help of white ink, which has been my biggest antagonist for a while now, alongside the black ink. You know, ink has basically been my antagonist for this year, but I feel like using the white ink to create the rays helped it a lot. It made way for really honing in on what I was looking for, and I'm glad I trust the process. So close of just like trashing it just because it wasn't looking right to me, but I didn't trash it. I didn't trash this art piece because, like the good old modern day prophet of our times, Shia LaBeouf, would say, you know, don't give up on your dreams, just do it. You know, once I finished blacking in and creating the light rays, I did leave it blank for a while. I left the background blank, and I almost burnt myself out yet again with this illustration piece. Actually, no, sorry, I didn't burn myself out with this one. I was feeling a little burnt out with an illustration piece I did prior to this that I did trash, just because I messed up on the inking, and I just did not have the energy to continue trying to fix it. Basically, I didn't have the energy, and so I was feeling a little burnt out with this one. So given that I left the background blank, I couldn't let it go that there was just something about the piece felt like it was missing. So that's when I decided, okay, let's go forward with the idea of making the sewer as the background, because that was the original plan. And I'm not going to scrap it just because I'm feeling a little out of it, you know? I'm not going to scrap it just because I'm a little tired, you know? So I went forward with it. And honestly, I'm glad I did, because it completes it, basically. In particular, this scene was totally inspired by the art piece where we have Link sort of escorting Zelda through the dark sewers. You know, he's holding her hand and he's holding a lantern. I kind of wanted to draw something similar, but give it my own take on it. And I wanted to show Link in a bit more of a heroic light. You know, he's escorting her, not just through the sewers, but he's holding her while he's, you know, walking through a snake-infested water. You know, this time she's holding the lantern and holding on to Link for, you know, of course, safety. Dude, you know what really came in handy with this illustration piece? One of the best art books I own is the Legend of Zelda Art and Artifacts, published by Dark Horse. Dude, I fucking love this book. It has helped me so many times to come up with ideas, because it's basically a collection of all the Zelda artwork. Well, not all of it, but most of it. You know, you have character designs, you have concept art, you have artwork that was used in magazines, or just official artwork that was used in general. Fucking fantastic book. I used the lantern in the book as reference for the lantern here. And I don't know, I was really digging it. I don't know why I get so giddy over like doing the dumbest things, like drawing a fucking lantern. I don't know, it's just kind of fun, you know? You're thinking about like the different shapes that lanterns are, you know, it's like a cone on top of a cylinder, you know, it's I don't know, it's kind of interesting. That little art tip: if you're going to try to draw an object, always make sure you turn them into their basic shapes and then add the detail. You know, that's Art 101 fundamentals. Kind of like what I was doing with the motorcycle, but this one was a little less tedious, but still as fun. For Link, for his sword and shield, I used a Legend of Zelda amiibo to get sort of the angle of the sword, just to see where the sword and the shield would be placed if he was at this angle. That was helpful too. Dude, it's always nice to have toys and art books to serve as good references. I really love being a collector of all sorts of media, you know? Because you never know when it's going to come in handy until it comes in handy, you know? This is actually my favorite Zelda design, by the way. Out of all the Zelda games, I really like this design. She's not wearing a princess dress. She's wearing kind of a commoner's outfit, I guess you would call it. A fancy commoner's. I don't know if it's commoners, but it's a fancy, but not as princessy, you know? A Link to the Past in general has produced some of my all-time favorite Legend of Zelda artwork, from character designs like Zelda to just capturing how I view the Legend of Zelda. You know, when I think of Link, I think of this guy, you know, I think of the guy sleeping under a tree while on an adventure, but still being heroic and, you know, making sure the princess is saved and whatnot. This is how I think of Link. There was also an artist, oh God, I'm gonna butcher his name, Katsuya Terada. Probably butchered that name. But yeah, he's done some pretty fantastic artwork for A Link to the Past. Like, his shit is pretty dope. In fact, I used him as inspiration for creating the textures of the background. Also, he draws Link with pants on. I don't like Link not wearing pants. I think it's weird. Buddy, you can't just be free balling, man. You gotta put on some goddamn pants. I even put like little like sort of stitching around his leg, so it looks like, you know, the pants were stitched together the way he did it too as well. But yeah, you know, he's another artist that who he really uses texture well, and I was inspired by that. I like textury things. I like things looking like they have sort of a groove to them, a feel to them. You know, it's important to think about texture when, you know, creating art, at least in my opinion. I mean, it's not like a must-have, but it does add a bit more depth to the artwork. But yeah, you know, there's a lot about Link to the Past that I just, you know, I've just been missing. The way that the dungeons were structured, just even like simple things like items. You know, hopefully going forward with Legend of Zelda, I kind of hope Nintendo maybe returns a little bit back to the roots with A Link to the Past. I've always considered Link to the Past kind of not really the original Zelda, but it was kind of like this nice blueprint. It was kind of like Zelda finding its structure, if that makes any sense, you know? Because like Ocarina of Time, you know, Wind Waker, they all borrowed pretty much structures from A Link to the Past, and I kind of wish we would return a little bit back to it. I mean, to an extent, I think the open world aspects from Tears of the Kingdom and the food, of course, I think going forward, that is the right thing to do. But in terms of like dungeon structures and even items, I wish we would return back to Link to the Past. I wish we would return back to that. God, even design. I'm so fucking sick of Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom's designs. Dude, I do not give a shit about Hyrule Warriors because I do not care about that universe anymore. Please, Nintendo, whatever the next Zelda game is, please move on from Tears of the Kingdom. I don't give a fuck about the world anymore. The problem I had with Breath of the Wild, honestly, was how it kind of had a sci-fi element to it, which I know a lot of people would be like, well, A Link to the Past originally was going to be a sci-fi game. It's like, yeah, I get that, but I don't give a shit if it was originally going to be a sci-fi game. I don't like sci-fi in my Zelda game. To an extent, of course, because yes, I know Majora's Mask had that robot thingy. Yes, I know A Link to the Past had those laser eye things. Yes, I know. But I don't like sci-fi in my Zelda game. Like, okay, speaking of the items, let's talk about the Sheikah Slate. Fuck the Sheikah Slate. I fucking hate the Sheikah Slate. Sheikah, the goddamn Wii U tablet or smartphone or Switch tablet that Link had. I fucking hated that shit. Dude, Nintendo, I don't want to be reminded of the technology that I use in real life in my video games. Stick with a setting. I hate the Sheikah. I do, with a passion, actually. It's an unhinged passion, but it's very passionate. I mean, okay, Zelda has never always been 100% medieval. I got that. It's always been kind of like Dragon Quest, where it's like, it has medieval themes, but they always go in their own direction. But the usage of technology, like the Sheikah Slate or the robots from Breath of the Wild, do not like that shit. That just takes me out of the fantasy. Dude, Link was a magical guy. He had some magic powers. He had, magical items. The ocarina had magic. The Wind Waker, of course, you know, he controlled the wind. He had a season's rod with magic. It's magic, guys. It's magic. We don't need to add a sci-fi element to Zelda. Stop it, Nintendo. Get some fucking help. So what I'm saying is bring back more of the aesthetics from A Link to the Past. I think that's something I would love to see more in the future. But yeah, so I've been toying with the idea of reviewing A Link to the Past for Loon Junk Media. But lately, I've also been playing Majora's Mask. I'm just finishing up a playthrough of Majora's Mask. And part of me is like, I kind of want to talk about that game. So there may or may not be a Majora's Mask review in the future. I still got to finish my Oblivion video, and I still got to finish my Super Mario comic video. So maybe I shouldn't be adding more videos to an already busy schedule, you know? But yeah, that's all I have to say about this art piece, and I guess that's all I have to say about all the art pieces because this is the last one. So yeah, that wraps up this Art and Ramble. I hope you guys enjoyed it because, you know, I actually kind of enjoy making these Art and Ramble videos. One of the goals of Art and Ramble is really for me to get comfortable talking about my art without some sort of like pre-planned script, and you know, just kind of ramble about fun shit that I enjoy. That's Art and Ramble of 2025. Thank you all for watching this video. I hope you had fun. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you got something out of it. I hope you learned a little bit about art, or you learned that I'm an idiot, and that's fine if you learned I'm an idiot. I learn that lesson every fucking day. So I'm just gonna end this video before I say something even stupider. Goodbye. Fun fact about food back then, they were shit at food safety. I mean, we should be so lucky. I think we're better, but back then they were just horrible. You know, ketchup was invented because they were trying to mask the taste of bad, rotten meat that they would get at like butcher shops. Because butchers were like unregulated, so they just would like sell you rotten ass meat, and then you'd come home not knowing it was rotten, and then you'd be like, "Oh shit, this tastes horrible." But just like you can't throw away meat because meat cost a lot of money back then, so they're like, just put some ketchup on that shit. That's when ketchup was invented. That's kind of a true story. I occasionally would watch the what's the show called? Or Foods That Made America or something. It was on the History Channel, or it is on the History Channel. I love that show. I haven't seen it in a while because I usually catch it on Hulu, but I don't really watch a lot of Hulu these days, so might have to cancel Hulu. I'm just, you know, all these subscriptions, man. Anyway, back to the cake. Why am I getting sidetracked? Back to the cake.